Heard the take that classes should not be nerfed, and I wonder what you think. Um, so if I could agree with that on a reason, right? So, like, in principle, I disagree with that. But the problem is that if that principle causes everyone to not want to play the game and the game to then fucking die, then from a business perspective, you can't do that, right? You have a fiduciary responsibility towards your stakeholders and your shareholders that you have to make decisions for the benefit of the game. And even if you think something is for the benefit of the balance of the game, if the benefits of the balance of the game make it so that everyone quits the game and the game dies, then it's not for the benefit of the game itself, right? Things that you make for the benefit of the balance of the game are hopefully are in functionality for also increasing the game itself, right? So if they don't do that, then they miss their purpose. But there's like is it ethical? It's more like there's like a value difference there. Because if this game is like made for people who just want to get stronger always and always power creep and always more is better, and that's what this game wants to do, and that's what therefore the players want to get, then it should always be progressive because then you're playing to your catering to your player base, sorry, other way around, and then you're playing to more people like that. And in the West, that'll specifically do well. I just don't really follow that mindset, and I'm not really of that opinion that that's going to be necessary to keep the game successful. I think the game can also be very successful while just making tweaks. In general, it's going to be trending upwards, but you're going to need tweaks here and there, and those will include buffs and nerfs. And I don't think whenever a class is OP, we should just make all the other ones equally OP, because then you can end up with a whole bunch of classes who are because this is how you look at OP, not like can it do a lot, but can it do so much that it exceeds the projected growth that the game is designed for, right? Then you're OP, then you're progressing super fast. So I think if there's a severe disconnect between what you're progressing the game's difficulty for and how quickly a character can progress through that, I think that's something that either you have to make the game a bit more difficult or you have to nerf that character a little bit to maintain that balance. That's where I'm at. I do understand and do agree that in general it'll always feel better to just make the game a bit more difficult and to keep the character the same than to nerf the character to bring it in line with the game. That last one is, even though it's going to have the same intended result, it's always going to feel a bit worse because people don't want to lose things. But if the game is harder and the character stays the same, even though people still lose the exact same, they're not going to feel that they lose the same. And in the end, perception is reality, so it'll depend on how big it's going to impact. That's why with the changes with Kishin, I think it makes more sense to just reduce the amount of mezzo and the amount of experience that the monsters give, but keep Kishin in play the way that it is, because if you reduce it and you keep the rates the same, you're going to have the same rate changes, but it's going to feel shit that you're just sitting there waiting for monsters to spawn, and that's going to make everyone just feel shit about the game and what it looks like, and that's going to be, in the end, that's going to be more important than whether or not the rates went down or not. Yeah, that optics there, I think, is more important. So basically agree. I also think that classes should be nerfed for the sake of the balance of the game. Just buffing, I think, defeats the balance. Also, that I was told came conveniently from an Adele main. I see. Convenient, right? Yeah. I mean, it's kind of what they're doing now, though, right? In KMS, like there's the 4 classes that they think do very well in Korea, basically got nothing, or even Hoyoung even got a nerf, and all the other classes just got big buffs to bring them up to the same level. Now, if that's with keeping in mind with just doing a little bit less power creep and a little bit ease of bossing, you just slow that down and you bring the characters up to the level so you get the same intended result. That's probably better than like nerfing all the classes but then making the content in the game easier to meet each other in the same way. That would be weird. Like, why would you change 2 things if you can just change 1 thing to have the intended result, right? Not only is that easier to implement, but it's also easier to control for because you have fewer moving parts, so that in the end, when you have things being incongruent with each other and interacting in a weird way, you have fewer variables to figure out of where it's coming from because you just change 1 thing. So if that's too much, you just you dial it back just a little bit and boom, you're where you want to be. But you can have more unintended results if you're moving more, if you're changing more parts at the same time. Nobody like you. Nobody like you. Nobody, no, nobody like you. Nobody like you. How are we doing? I think we're for flag. We're doing pretty well. Okay, we're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well. What's there to balance? It's a PvE game. Just make everything OP so people can pick what they like to play and enjoy it. If your only enjoyment comes from turning off your brain and just rolling your face around, you should play like one of those cookie clicker mobile shitter games, where you're just like clicking the box, clicking the box, clicking the box. I mean, if the whole community decides that that's what they want for this game, that could work too. I mean, I will leave this game then because that's fucking stupid. But just a lot of value out of your gameplay and out of your time comes from how difficult something is to get. If everything becomes easy, your barrier to where you start appreciating what you get will just be moved up. That's all that's going to happen. Or you're going to be bored before you get to that time because it's so fucking brain dead, right? But balancing that out properly is like, where do you start increasing the difficulty? I don't think it should be where it is with Maple now, where everything is just like one giant RNG roller, right? I do believe in more systems that are pity systems, and in like a little bit more fair ways of distributing. Under like someone who does a boss 200 times should never not have an item yet that someone who did 2 runs and got lucky did get. Like, I don't think that should ever be the case. That is just too unfair to the players. Like, some RNG, I think is cool and can be exciting and can, make people make some mistakes, and, that could definitely be a part of it. But that being the driving factor and the underlying reason for everything is just cheap, and it's lazy.